What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to have a chat about Shanks. Shanks is out, obviously over in Japan. OP-09 is out over in Japan. And I'm starting to see a bunch of winning Shanks lists pop up over on my various timelines. And look, we're not talking big tournaments yet, we're talking little tournaments, but I got an example list to show you today that went undefeated in a local tournament over in Japan. It is not the only Shanks list I'm seeing coming around over there, and I'm really liking Shanks. It is the leader I like probably the most out of OP-09 on a personal level, but then again I do tend towards red decks, so maybe that isn't terribly surprising, but it's a cool deck, it's one that I like, and it is a very OP-09 deck list, because of course it's Redhead Pirates, and most of them came around in OP-09. So starting off with our leader Shanks here, we got Mono Red, 5,000 power, 5 life, as expected, and once per turn, when your opponent attacks, give one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 1,000 power during the turn. Basically making your opponent have an extra 1,000 counter in order to get an attack through. That sounds good to me, and you might see a little bit of a theme as we go through here. Now, we do have ourselves Uta. This is your generic Redhead Pirate Searcher. So, 1 cost, 2,000 power, counter plus 1,000. But on play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a Redhead Pirates, add it to your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Standard thing, this is your Searcher, you've obviously got to play it. And you've obviously got to play Atama here. No, we're not talking Redhead Pirates, but it's got counter plus 2k, which is brilliant. And it's a 1-cost character that gives one of your opponent's characters minus 2k power during this turn. And given that we got a little bit of a theme going on here of lowering power, seems like this is a kind of card that might be a good idea to play in this deck. Now there's no 2-cost characters here, but we do have Lime Juice, 3-cost, 3,000 power, and you got counter plus 2,000, another one of those is always good. And on play, your opponent cannot activate one of their blockers with 4,000 power or less during this turn. So it turns off one of their small blockers for a turn, meaning you can get attacks through, which is clearly a good thing. Plus another counter plus 2k is not too shabby. We've got Hongo. All of these I should mention are Redhead Pirates unless I'm telling you otherwise. And Hongo here, 3 cost, 3,000 power, counter plus 2,000. Yes, another one. And activate main, you may rest this character, and if your leader is Redhead Pirates, which obviously it is, we're playing Shanks, give one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. Key thing here is, unlike Atama, this is an activate main, so you could potentially use this turn after turn after turn. But we're already seeing a bunch of lowering power. It is not a coincidence. Now, Lucky Roo comes in as a blocker, 4 cost, 5,000 power, counter plus 1,000. And as well as being a blocker, we've got on KO, if your leader is Redhead Pirates, which obviously it is, KO one of your opponent's characters with a base power of 6,000 or less, which is actually really important for this deck because we're lowering power constantly. Being able to focus on the base power rather than the actual power now is kind of awesome. So you're a blocker, when you block you get KO'd, or you might get KO'd, and if you do get KO'd, you get to take one of your opponent's characters down with you. Yeah, in this deck, absolutely stunning. No surprise why this is such a gosh darn good card. Now you can't have a Redhead Pirates deck without Yasop, and we do have Yasop here. 5 cost, 6,000 power, counter plus 1,000, and on play, your leader gains 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, which is honestly awesome because they've now got to have an extra 1,000 power to get an attack over your leader and deal damage to your life. So we've got a lot of characters here in the leader that are lowering power. This isn't lowering your opponent, it's raising your leader. But if they're attacking your leader, that's the same thing. Oh yeah, but then we've also got Don X1 when attacking. Give one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power for the turn. What we're doing here in this deck, very simply, is making it really annoying for our opponent to ever get any attack through. Now, we do have ourselves a rally here, which isn't Redhead Pirates. This is Roger Pirates. 5 cost, 6,000 power, counter plus 1,000, and we've got blocker. And on play, if your opponent's got 2 or more characters of a base power of 5,000 or more, so if you've lowered their power, it doesn't matter, draw 2, trash 1. Okay, fine, it's not red-haired pirates, but it's a blocker with a built-in draw engine. That'll do very nicely indeed. And unlike a lot of decks, we've got quite a lot of 7 cost and higher characters. This does build up a bit, but because you're lowering a lot of power, that should give you a bit more time to get your Don out and get these bigger characters. Like Ben Beckman, for instance, who it turns out has the highest IQ of anyone in the first 50 issues of the manga. And that's canon. But here, 7 cost, 7,000 power, counter plus 1,000, and on play, trash one of your opponent's characters with 6,000 power or less. But this isn't base power, so here, with all the power minus that we've got going on, and I've already shown you a bunch in this deck, this should be a 7 cost, 7,000 power that just KOs anything on play. Lower power, get them to where you need them to be, play Ben Beckman, they go away, job's a good 'un. Now, we have a couple copies of Edward Newgate from the starter deck. This is starter deck 16. Obviously not red-haired pirates, it's white-beard pirates and 4 emperors. And we got 7 cost, 8,000 power. And on play, your leader or one of your characters, you get to add Arrested Don. Just give one of your characters or leader Arrested Don. I cannot be the only one that thinks that sounds like a pretty good thing. Give Arrested Don, have a little bit more power, job's a good 'un. Yeah, it turns out Edward Newgate is coming along here to help really rather nicely. We've also got an activate main that rests this character and KOs one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less. But again, as I've already mentioned, we're not actually going after a 5,000 power character here. We are lowering power of our opponent and then bringing this in to KO basically anything. We have a couple copies of the Silvers Rally from OP-08, the secret rare. Obviously, this is former Rogers Pirate. It is not red-haired pirates. But on play, you select 2 of your opponent's characters. One gets minus 3k and the other gets minus 2k until the end of your opponent's next turn. So again, we've got lots of lowering power. This is good. And then you KO a 3k or less, and you'll see where we're going with this deck. We've got lots of KOing a particular power. We've got lots of lowering power. And then, of course, this does all of it. And that's basically where we're going with this deck. We are controlling the board by taking out characters, but we're also lowering our opponent's power to try and make sure they're not getting attacks through. And then, of course, we are building up to our beefy characters here. And we do have beefy characters. Like the 10 cost Shanks from OP-06, which is 10 cost, 12,000 power, and on play, KO a character with 10,000 power or less. Honestly, you're not going to need to lower power much, if at all, with this Shanks. But, you know, you've got some options. If you've got like a 12k opposite you, you can at least bring them down. Speaking of giant Shanks, we've also got ourselves the new Shanks. That is, of course, the one from this set from OP-09. And that is 10 cost, 12,000 power. All of your opponent's characters get minus 1,000 power. And you've also got Rush. So you got a 12k Rush, which is great. And all of your opponent's characters just get a static minus 1k. And yeah, it will stack. So if you get multiple Shanks out, you could have your opponent having minus 4k on all their characters, which would be absurd. But the point here is you're already lowering power a lot. Now you get this static minus 1k just constantly. This is going to get pretty brutal. There are going to be times where you can just lower your opponent's power to the point they just can't do anything, and that's going to be hilarious. Oh, and speaking of lowering power, there is a couple copies of another 1-cost character here. We've got Building Snake. Activate main, put this character to the bottom of the owner's deck to give somebody minus 3,000 power. And it's a red-haired pirate, so it's easier to search out. There we go. The way the deck that I'm going to show you is laid out, that was at the end for some reason. It's kind of almost like an event card. It's not, but it's not a million miles away. in terms of the effect that it does. So yeah, there we go. Speaking of event cards, obviously, we have a full playset here, a full 4 copies of Come On, We'll Fight You. And it's a 1-cost card. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Find a Redhead Pirates card other than Come On, We'll Fight You. Add it to your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. It's Uta, but as an event card. Gives a huge amount of consistency. And sure, there's a few cards in this deck that aren't Redhead Pirates. Most of them are. This gives you extra consistency, and that's lovely. And then to finish, a couple copies of the 0-cost event card, Bad Manners Kick Course. As a counter, you trash a card from your hand to give a 3k bump to your leader or one of your characters. Or as a trigger, it gives one of your opponent's leader or characters minus 3k for the turn. And if you can lower your opponent's leader by 3k, you might be able to get a couple of attacks through. And that would be lovely. Here's a list as a whole. It's not the only Shanks list out there or anything like that. It is a very nice example of a Shanks list, and it's a list that I like very much, which is why I'm showing you this one. This was shared over on Twitter by Pewdo1419, who did go undefeated at a little tournament over in Japan with this deck. And I really like it. I think this deck's got a huge amount of potential. I think constantly lowering power can really... firstly, stop your opponent winning, which is fun. Secondly, open up all of these KO options you've got, which is fun. And thirdly, give you more time to build up to these big characters like your 10-cost Shanks, which is going to lead you to victory. But I've told you about all this now, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this deck. Tell me if you think it's legit. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.